We're here today with Collier. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation for this interview.
Sure, of course.
And let's just get right to the questions.
All right, let's do it.
First off, let's start with something about the foundation. What led to the establishment of the OpenStack Foundation?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think when we started OpenStack about 6 years ago, I was at Rackspace, which is a fairly big web hosting company that it was really starting to move into cloud computing, and we really felt like in order to be able to compete with the big giants of tech like the Amazons and Googles of the world, we really needed to form a coalition, if you will, of like-minded people out there. And so open source was the right way to do that. So we started OpenStack, and really just it snowballed from there. We started to get a lot more interest from companies big and small, from the Dells to the Ciscos, on and on and on. And as it really took on a life of its own, we realized, the whole point of this project is to make it something bigger than one company, including Rackspace. And we wanted it to be bigger than Rackspace. That was the whole point, or else we would have just kept developing software internally and not done an open source project. So it was really kind of inevitable, I think, that we do an open source, nonprofit foundation. And some of the users and some of the bigger companies and vendors felt like that would be a good move as well. So we got a lot of, once we started to talk it through with other companies, everyone said, yeah, this is a great idea. Let's have the whole industry kind of pitch in to fund this thing. And ultimately, I think one of the things that makes OpenStack great is that the community, the sense that anybody can contribute from any company. There's no one company dominating it. That was always the idea from the start, and having a foundation really helps ensure that that it stays that way forever.
Right. Right now, currently, what are the top priority goals for the foundation?
The top priorities? Yeah, so I think one of those is education. So we see the tremendous amount of demand for people that understand cloud computing, understand OpenStack, and so one of the things we've just recently announced and started offering is an OpenStack certification for individuals. It's a professional certification. It's called the Certified OpenStack Administrator. So we just started that at our last summit. We have these summits twice a year all over the world. The last one was in Austin. We had like 7,800 people registered, so it was the biggest one yet, and we started to do on-site testing. Now we have the Certified OpenStack Administrator test that you can take online. So we expect thousands of people will actually take the test this year. And so that fits in the theme of education. We also have been bringing together a lot of different types of training. We have Upstream University, which is something that happens at a lot of the OpenStack days, as well as at our summits, which is the idea that if you're a new developer or new to OpenStack and you want to learn how to contribute upstream, which is what we call anyone who's contributing to the code base, we teach them kind of the ropes, how to be a good community member, how to be productive. So that's one aspect, and then within the OpenStack summits, we have what we call OpenStack Academy, which is kind of a culmination of all the educational efforts. There's hands-on workshops, there's intensive training, and that's all free for anyone who's attending the summit. So it's really as a foundation for us, it's all about spreading the knowledge. So I would say education clearly is a high on the list. Another one would be sort of thinking about application developers. So in the first few years of OpenStack, we really had to focus on operators, helping them install OpenStack, maintain it, upgrade it. I mean, that was kind of like table stakes to just have OpenStack clouds up and running. And now that they're all over the world, the largest companies in the world run it, a lot of smaller companies are starting to run it. The next question is, okay, what are you going to do with it? What are the applications you're going to run on it? So we just had our first application hackathon in Taiwan, in Taipei, and it was really successful. A lot of cool apps came out of that, and we're starting to do that all over the world. The next one's in Guadalajara, Mexico, and hopefully next year we'll be able to do one somewhere in Europe as well. So it's starting to become another type of event where we focus on applications running on top of OpenStack. So those are probably a couple of the ones I'd want to highlight.
That's pretty awesome. I see that you're very focused on community.
Absolutely.
And to grow it. If I can relate that, because the community type initiatives we have here are the smart city ones.
Sure.
So what's your view on it?
Well, I think that I'd heard a little bit about smart city 6 months ago, And really, when I got to know the folks at TCP Cloud and learned what was going on right here in the Czech Republic with smart cities, I started to do more investigation. I learned that this thing is not just a buzzword. I mean, this is becoming real very fast. And it sort of dawned on me, like the light bulb went off just in the last 2 or 3 months, that we're really remaking cities, how we're going to experience our lives every day in major cities. And OpenStack has a big role to play in that. And I think it's a perfect example of how with open source and community, you just never know where it's going to go. When we started OpenStack, we had no idea it would be in like telcos. I mean, there's a telecom company in the U.S. called AT&T, and they now route cell phone calls for millions of calls through an OpenStack cloud. We had no idea that would ever happen. And those same kind of companies, the telecom providers, are starting to look at the Internet of Things, which then brings you to smart city with all these connected devices. And when we first talked to Adam and Jacob from TCP Cloud about what they were working on, they said, yeah, we're working on this smart city in the Czech Republic. They're running these Raspberry Pis with Kubernetes, and it's backed by OpenStack. We're like, this is like too good to be true. And within a few days, they actually planned and executed this incredible demo at our summit in Austin, where they instrumented all these different spaces and they measured the CO2 levels, and you thought, this is exactly what can be done in a city, and they did it in a few days. So to me, the rate at which things go from idea to execution is just shrinking, and that's incredible to me. I mean, I love that open source can be a force for good in making cities more efficient, and air quality obviously is hugely important to everybody, I hope, and the fact that OpenStack can play some small part in that is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I think that small part is kind of an understatement, because I think that OpenStack is really like one of the tools that power it.
Sure.
Yeah.
I've never been accused of understatement before, so this is a first.
Sorry about that.
No. Usually the hyperbole is what they say for me, but no, I'm trying to turn over a new leaf and be more understated, so it's going well.
Yeah. Leading on to OpenStack, I've seen on your survey from earlier this year that majority of the companies that use OpenStack are large companies, like with hundreds of employees. Where do you see the small businesses in OpenStack in the future?
Yeah, I think that one of the things so the user survey is really great data that we use, and it helps inform where we want to go with OpenStack and the roadmap. But it's never going to be 100% complete, because it's sort of an opt-in, whoever takes the survey. But one of the things that's probably underrepresented in that data are people who are actually consuming OpenStack, but through a partner, through a public cloud. There's dozens of public clouds all over the world, a lot of them in Europe, that are powered by OpenStack. They aren't necessarily going to take that survey because they're not operating a cloud. They're using a cloud that's powered by OpenStack. And then there's other models in between, like hosted private cloud. So IBM bought a company called Blue Box last year, I believe, and that's really focused on this hosted private cloud market. There's others, in China and elsewhere that are launching similar model. And the idea of that is, it's your own private cloud as a company that's dedicated to you, but someone else kind of maintains and manages it. And that's another case where a small or medium business may be effectively running on OpenStack, but they may not necessarily take our survey, because we tend to have more direct contact with people who actually are closer to operating it. So I think if you look at the spectrum of ways in which you can get OpenStack, everywhere from a public cloud to the do-it-yourself on one other extreme, there's a whole range of opportunities to consume it in different models. And so we actually see a number of small businesses being very successful with OpenStack-powered services. One example I would give is Digital Film Tree. So they've spoken at a couple of our summits. They're really remaking how Hollywood does post-production work. So they take thousands and thousands of hours of a television shoot, for example, of footage, raw footage, and every day it comes in and they're terabytes of data, and they're trying to help the producers whittle it down to your 30-minute TV show. And they've gone to a completely cloud-based workflow, and it's all based on OpenStack. So in some cases, they'll have an OpenStack cloud on the set or in the city. For example, there's this TV show called Unreal, which is filmed in Vancouver. They had an OpenStack cloud set up in Vancouver. They could take the daily footage, and then they would move it, shovel it back to the Los Angeles, Hollywood production center. So it's a very small company. I don't know if they have, maybe 20 employees at the most, but they're doing everything through OpenStack. They have a really visionary CTO named Guillaume Aubuchon, and definitely encourage anyone to look up his videos on our YouTube channel. He's a very entertaining guy, and that's an example where a small company can help transform an industry through cloud using OpenStack, like the television and film industry.
That's a great example, because I think we need more of small businesses actually powering, because they are the force that drive the economy.
Absolutely,
so
yeah.
That's great that they're participating in the movement.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because we probably don't talk enough about some of the smaller companies. It's kind of tempting when we get up on stage to say, yeah, Walmart and AT&T and China Mobile and and on and on and on, BMW and et cetera. But it's true that the lifeblood of the economy and job creation are definitely small businesses. So we should probably take the hint and talk about that a little more.
Oh, that may be a good start right now.
There we go.
Now let's talk about a little bit of a tricky question. Some might say that connecting with partners like Docker and Kubernetes is like fraternizing with the enemy.
Oh, okay.
What's your say on that?
Well, if you're into soccer, you have to be careful, because you can actually get a yellow card for fraternizing with the enemy. This is something that I carry with me in case this comes up. But the truth is that Kubernetes is a really good example of a project, much like OpenStack, that was started by users. And so one of the reasons I think OpenStack took off early is a lot of companies and individuals felt comfortable that they were in a collaborative environment, because Rackspace and NASA, which were the two founders, they weren't software companies trying to sell enterprise software. They were just wanted to use open source. They wanted to make a cloud and run it. They weren't like trying to sell like enterprise box software, proprietary software. So there wasn't this sort of conflict of interest you get sometimes with projects like that. And so Kubernetes is the same way. It came out of Google. Google's not out trying to sell you a box of software. They could care less about that. They just want to see cloud computing advance, and they're willing to share their technology and see a project grow, and that actually helps them. It helps the whole market rise faster. So we felt a lot of opportunities emerge with open source projects like that, where it does something. It's Apache licensed, which is you can get into open source licensing. It's kind of a dry subject, but the type of open source license you use does matter. And Apache 2.0 license is what OpenStack uses, what Kubernetes uses. It basically means it's really easy. You have a lot of freedom to combine it with other technologies and basically use it however you want. And so that makes the communities quite compatible. We've found that what they're solving for is different than what OpenStack is solving for. What they're trying to do is orchestrate containers, which is an application construct. OpenStack's all about infrastructure. So, we're very much about don't get caught in this not invented here trap where you're like, well, I didn't invent that, so I need to build a different one. No, forget about it. There's these great orchestration engines, these great container technologies. OpenStack is itself kind of an integration engine. We never set out to build everything. Even if you look at the original OpenStack, the hypervisor was KVM or Zen or VMware. So it's always been OpenStack plus other technologies. And that gets kind of sometimes lost in the kind of glossy headlines of like OpenStack does everything. Well, it's an engine that helps you do a lot of things, but there's always other technologies in there. And we see this, what I've been talking about is kind of the emerging LAMP stack of the cloud era. In the past, in the web 2.0 kind of revolution, that was powered by Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. And those were separate open source projects developed by different people in different communities. But end users put them together and said, wow, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And so that really helped drive all of those technologies to much wider adoption when they're combined. So I believe that OpenStack plus Kubernetes plus Docker, you put all that together, all of them are going to drive adoption of each other as kind of complementary components. And we see our users are doing that. There were people here at the OpenStack Day in Prague talking about this morning. So there's no reason to fight that. I think the best thing you can do is just collaborate. Collaborate or die is my motto. So I don't want to die. So I'm thinking we're going to go collaborate.
Yeah, so I guess we're back at the community and how important it is for the whole world.
Yes.
Not only in the developer world, but overall. How do you see the future of open source?
Yeah, I mean, I think that what's amazing to me to think about is that software has become strategic to every company out there, and that wasn't the case 10 years ago. It used to be, if you're eBay, sure, you need to know about technology, but if you're a bank, it doesn't really matter that much. It's kind of a back office thing. But these days, if you don't have a great mobile app and a great cloud experience as a bank, you're going to go out of business. So, automakers have to think about cloud computing as well with self-driving cars. So everything is pointing to software being more strategic. At the same time, what we're seeing is that open source is becoming sort of the default way. It's no longer kind of playing second fiddle to the proprietary software model. So as more and more people get committed to building software to be part of their value, and more of those people realize open source is a faster way to innovate and a better long-term solution, it's really kind of those two things are coming together. And I think that one of the things that's so powerful about it is its users. I keep talking about users, I know, but it's the people that use the technology that have so much more of a seat at the table than they used to. In the old model, the sales rep will come in and go, here's our roadmap, buy what's on the truck. And you kind of groan, okay, I'll buy it, and you have a long-term contract. And if you say, well, I wish this was on the roadmap as the customer, even if you're writing a big giant check, they're like, okay, fine, we'll write it down. If you're lucky, 2 or 3 years from now, maybe it's actually in the product. But you have no real way to ensure that. It takes a really long time. Now we have users of OpenStack, like China Mobile. They have 850 million subscribers, and they're one of the most active contributors to OpenStack. So they can actually contribute to the code, they can attend our summits, they can have a voice, and that's just changing everything about the world because everything's moving to software. Open source is the default model, and I think it just kind of increases the pace of change, which is exciting.
Yeah, it definitely is, and hopefully we'll just keep on moving.
I know. Let's do it.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And enjoy the rest of your day here.
I'm sure I will. Thank you.
Great.